videos are no longer archived on the town website and should be found on YouTube. Before we begin, a quick reminder, while our meetings are relatively informal, the commission uses a simplified version of Robert's rules. The chair runs the meeting and everyone should speak through the chair after being recognized. Please raise your hand if you wish to speak. We allow discussion between commissioners, staff, and applicants, and may extend that to abutters. For NOIs and RDAs, the applicant will present first, followed by discussion with the commission and staff. Once commission questions have slowed, abutters will have a chance to speak, followed by other members of the public as time allows. The chair may set time limits if needed. Please keep your microphones muted unless it's your turn to speak, and let the chair know if you plan to record the meeting. Most importantly, please be respectful of others so we can keep the meeting productive and focused. And now I'm going to take attendance. Janet Benjamins.
Here.
Joanne Cossett.
Here.
Greg Douglas.
Here.
Chuck Wagner. Chuck. Stay here.
Yeah, here. I don't know why this thing mutes every time it switches us on and off.
So, I'm Karen Strauss. I am here. So first on our agenda is we have a public comment section. If anybody wishes to speak on something not on the agenda tonight, please let us know. And being nobody, our first item is a continuation of request for determination of applicability filed by Gail Bedoukian. Applicant proposes to flush cut 23 invasive Japanese pine trees and planting beach grass at property located at 18 Horton Way, map 07, parcel 493A. And the applicant has continued until July 22nd, 2025. Next up is certificate of compliance filed by John and Trish Robertson for SE 19-1885 for expansion of the patio, new entrance steps, walkways, landscaping, and mitigation at property located at 210 Windjammer Lane, map 19, parcel 074. And I believe David Little, this is you.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I don't have anything to add. I provided an as-built plan to the commission. I believe the project is in compliance with the orders and the approved plans, but I defer to Alex on this. He's the guy you should really be listening to, not me. Thank you very much.
Okay, Alex.
Thank you, David. We did make it out to the property for a site visit. Greg and I were in attendance, and we did walk the property. As depicted on the plan, the project appears to be completed as proposed. The mitigation plantings seem to be doing well. The only issue we had was the in-ground irrigation around the dwelling of the house, and so I think we would want that to be removed for a full certificate of compliance is granted for this project. We could either continue this or issue a partial this evening, whatever the applicant or the commission wishes to do.
David, comments?
Thank you, Karen. So at this point, I would request an interim approval, or I'm not sure how it works, but I did explain to the owner that the irrigation was meant to be temporary to ensure the establishment of the plants in the area. And I pointed out the very small area in the northwest corner of the property where he could do irrigation by right. But I would request a partial COC.
Any thoughts from the commission? Anybody opposed to a partial COC?
No.
Okay. All right. So if we might have a motion to approve this as a partial certificate of compliance and with the irrigation area still to be removed.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second,
Okay, Chuck,
yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Janet,
Yes.
Joanne,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Okay, thank you. Next up is a certificate of compliance filed by Christopher Knottsley for, I hope that's right, for SE 19-1432 for reconstruction of an existing rock revetment and extension of return at property located at 20 Sherwood Road and 1620 Samoset Road, map 13 parcels. Map 13 and 16, parcel 131-A and 25. And is somebody here to speak on this, or Alex, if you just want to go through it with us? Any thoughts and
I
comments?
believe we do have someone here to speak to this certificate request for a certificate of compliance.
Okay, so they might make themselves known.
I'm going to join the meeting. Oh, let me unmute this or whatever. Sorry. I'm Zena Gorman on behalf of Jim Gorman. I don't know if this is the right property. Very embarrassing. I don't know how to get the camera on.
No, Zena, they aren't on 65 Harm's Way yet.
Oh, hi, Michael. I didn't see it. Okay, thank you.
Okay. You're at the end of the agenda. We're towards the end of the agenda. 65 Harms Way. Michael?
Perhaps we could circle back to this one, Karen?
Okay.
I'm sorry, this is Chuck. Is this my project?
Okay, wait,
This is
there we go.
This is your project.
Sorry, I had internet problems there.
This is 20 Sherwood Road and 1620 Samoset. That's you, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Sorry if I missed it, but have you guys already reviewed my letter?
Well, we just opened the hearing, and I think the commission has reviewed the filing. And if you have anything you'd like to add or tell us before we discuss this.
Sure. So we believe that the rate that was used as part of the order of conditions was conservative, and it was probably the rate that was used was the rate that was probably displayed at the time with the CZM coastal erosion map. Since then, the maps have changed. And so using the current CZM standards, we believe that we would shift the beach from an accretion to more of a stasis, where it would be stable and there would not be additional sand that is being placed on the beach. And so with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay. I'm going to go to Amy first.
Hi, Chuck. Can you give me your last name, please?
Sure. My name's Chuck Rowland, R-O-W-L-A-N-D.
Thank you.
Okay, so yeah, we had a discussion with the property owners a little while back on this, and I believe at the time we told them that we needed to see a properly formatted application for a change in nourishment, which normally would be a change in order of conditions, an application for a change in order of conditions. Normally, we don't do changes in conditions during a certificate of compliance hearing. But our
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just, after I had met with the agent, this is kind of the direction that we went in, thinking it would be okay if this was both a COC request with ongoing conditions, as opposed to the additional work of filing a new notice, where I don't think that there would be a great benefit of filing a new notice.
Oh, I was thinking more of just a request to change the order of conditions as opposed to a new notice of intent.
Oh,
But
you're saying an amended.
an amended order, yes. But our staff is recommending that we discuss whether we could condition this with a nourishment range from 75 cubic yards to 400 with annual assessments, which seems a little maybe more cumbersome than filing for a plan of an amended order before getting a COC. So, what is your thought on that, Chuck? And then I'll ask the commission.
Well, we'd obviously rather just have ongoing conditions with the certificate of compliance as opposed to amending the order, which would, like I said, I think even amending the order, you would just, it would just be more paperwork without actually getting any more information. With that being said, if you need more information, I'm happy to do my best to try to provide it, but that's just my thought. So,
Yeah. Well, I'm just going to ask the other commissioners on their thoughts. How about we start with Chuck? Anything you want to say here?
I don't know. I guess not.
Greg?
We were out there today. We took a look at it, and the sand had been dumped for this year, and it seems reasonable that they made the argument in the text that they were dumping too much sand, and I think it was the 1.5 number, and it does seem like that was a higher number in general, and it does seem reasonable that possibly a variable where we could have a range between the 0.7 and 0.9 or so, and because it may vary from year to year, and maybe if it doesn't change that much, then you could put a fixed number on it rather than a variable value. That's just one suggestion.
Okay, that would still require them coming back yearly to determine an amount.
Okay.
So, Joanne?
Yeah, I think I will admit I don't fully grasp all of the procedural technical fixes that this needs. But in concept, setting a minimum, such as, I think the letter doesn't quite say minimum of 75, it just says 75, but I would propose we could approve it with a minimum of 75, or if we wanted a range, a minimum of 75 not to exceed 400, some language like that. For what you're talking procedurally, I think we probably should do it so that it's consistent with how we have addressed other cases historically, so that we have some consistency just for filing purposes, but otherwise in concept, I agree with it.
Janet?
I like Joanne's idea of a minimum, but I don't have a clear feeling for it. One question I do have is, isn't First Encounter Beach right adjacent to this property? And if they say they are adding too much sand, I don't see that reflected in the sand at First Encounter Beach. I've seen the beach become much smaller from the water side to the parking lot. I don't see that there's any great accretion of sand, but I'm also not an expert in that. So I'm wavering. I'd definitely go for a minimum, but if they're adding so much and it's accreting, that's not to my observation, having seen first encounter during at least each month of the year, several times, I don't see the evidence that the sand is accreting there.
I think they're suggesting that the sand is accreting in front of the property because there's so much nourishment. It's not.
That's correct.
Yeah, and so that wouldn't affect sand buildup necessarily on adjacent or nearby properties. So they're asking for a reduction in sediment because they feel like there's too much sand in front of their property and on their revetment.
Would it be acceptable to have an ongoing condition, or at least maybe a 5-year condition that we, do a yearly report of the elevation at the bottom of the revetment for the next, let's say, 5 years, and that and we can meet with staff, and if that is, and we can come up with an agreed upon number in some sort of range, as long as the bottom of the revetment does not go below elevation 4.5, which is what the elevation was at the bottom of the revetment at the time of the permitting. So that way to allow for each seasonable or yearly variables.
Karen, can I make a comment?
Yeah, go ahead, Chuck. The other Chuck,
Yeah.
our Chuck.
All of that stuff that Joanne and Greg said was rattling around in my head when you asked me what I thought. I still don't know what I think about that. But what I think I do understand is that the nourishment is supposed to represent what would be reasonably expected to be contributed by normal erosion from the bank. And it is not supposed to be related to keeping a particular elevation of sand at any place down on the beach. Mm-hmm. And so there is a formulaic approach that we use for everybody. And I would say stick with that formulaic approach. And that's it.
Which I totally agree with. That's the whole objective, is to use the formula for the standard, which would put us at 75 yards, which we're happy to do.
Okay, I'm not in favor of a range because I don't know how we would determine on a year-by-year basis what seems appropriate, because it's more impactful over a number of years as opposed to specific, and 1 year might be a lot of accretion and the next year not so much, and it works from the averages. But if the formula is saying 75, then I'm of a mind that that would be okay. It's just I'm not completely sure procedurally we can change that number in a certificate of compliance. I think
that would be up to you. I think that would kind of be up to you.
Yeah.
If your staff has a comment on that, or
I was going to ask Hillary.
The point of the condition is the nourishment. I guess I would just hazard against going too low, because then if they need to put in more, that we're right back where we were. So I thought the range seemed like a reasonable idea, with an annual assessment prior to the nourishment being done. So they can evaluate how much the beach has dropped and then put the nourishment in the proper amount.
Okay.
Karen, perhaps a range that's not quite so big might be more amenable to what you're thinking about. Because that 75 to 400 is pretty big, right?
75 to 400 is pretty huge. And yeah, so I've kind of not quite decided on what I think should go on here either. But
the criteria for all of this stuff, if you're going to do that, who's going to do it and how are we going to do it? So it's not
Chuck, you're breaking up. You're breaking up a bit.
what I was saying is that we use that formula so that things are not literally subjective. If we're going to have a range, what are the criteria that are going to be used to judge what the value should be from any one year to the next?
Right, that's my sticking point for our range.
Right. I just say, not a formula. It's been working. Use it.
I think that maybe we could also do something along the lines so that way there's a trigger for the staff as opposed to having something objective. So would it be okay if we said 75 yards annual nourishment and if upon the beach has eroded to the point where it's a detriment to the abutter, then my client has agreed to an enforcement order which would require additional nourishment. So that way, if there's an issue, there's a trigger for you and everyone agrees that there is a trigger for you to enforce it. And then we can, if you would like, we could have a stipulation in the ongoing conditions saying that the client can nourish the beach, do additional beach nourishment in the event that it is needed. So that way it's 75 yards moving forward. The client knows that they're responsible for the beach dropping in their area, and we agree that you can send us an enforcement. I think that it serves everyone. You guys feel comfortable. We know that you have a trigger and we're responsible for the beach.
Well, actually, I've gone back to look at the order of conditions, number 25, and it does actually say that the commission has the right to change the sand volume at any time. So we could have an ongoing condition of number 25, and the agent, there could be a review annually under that or at over time under that to determine if the amount is correct, and then we can come back under that, I think.
Okay.
Which might make things clearer, but so I don't know that I could vote for a range, but I think we could go with the formula, and if as the erosion rate and so on has changed, the amount of sand has obviously changed as well. So sometimes you have to think about these things a little circularly to come to a conclusion, I think. Hillary?
Just a quick question. Does anyone know the formula they used in the original order? Because the length times the height times the erosion rate is the proper formula. So I'm just curious what they used the first time around.
It says the length of coastal structure times height from the toe of the bottom stone to top of coastal bank times annual erosion rate in the order of conditions.
And what are they?
That's what was used, and then there was another condition for an additional like 125 yards that was mentioned in the notice, but kind of got stuffed in the order, but as in it's a yearly addition to the calculated rate, which when I read the order, it was more of that additional amount was really to restore the beach due to the lack of historical beach nourishment as opposed to a yearly.
Okay, understood.
Where is that in the order?
I'm sorry, I don't have the full order in front of me, but how much is the annual amount in the order?
The annual amount is 425 cubic yards.
Right. But they don't show a calculation, and I believe
they show the formula, but they don't show the values of each of the
so what I
the formula.
believe they did is they used when calculations were done as part of the NOI, a rate of 1.5 per year. When looking at the CZM, blah blah blah, So now CZM is saying 0.9 as opposed to 1.5. And so if you use the, if you'd like, I'll bust out my calculator real quick. So 90 times 25 times 1.5 divided by 27 equals 125. And so then they took the, what did you say, 425?
Yeah.
So 425 minus 125 equals 300. So that what in the notice, they actually said at one point adding 300 yards. And so somehow that translated, I believe, into the order as not just 300 yards to restore the beach to pre-conditions, but actually like a yearly rate, which is almost like double dipping, or even in this case, triple dipping. So that's why we believe that there's been so much accretion in this area.
Okay. But that's not actually, doesn't seem to be spelled out as such.
No, they didn't. You'd have to like kind of like trust me. It's. I had to kind of dive into it and think about like for a little while where they came up with that.
Mm-hmm. It's sometimes interesting to read old orders, I will say. All right. So, okay. Hillary and then Joanne.
I was just going to say, I think you'd be safe to go with the calculation as Chuck calculated it. He did use the proper formula, and none of us were here before when they set the higher amount. I understand they were probably trying to restore the beach elevation, but I think we're safe with the calculation, and we're safe with the ongoing condition that we can alter it at any time if need be.
Okay. Joanne?
Yeah, exactly what Hillary said.
Okay, and Greg?
I had a quick question just for Chuck with respect to the purpose of the sand in this case is a little different than most revetments. And I'm not speaking as an expert on it, but it seems like part of the sand that would be added here would be to mitigate the erosion created by the end of the revetment. Is that true, Chuck?
That was not explicitly talked about in the notice. But the terminus effect is really, it's not so much, I believe, and I kind of more am an expert in designing these as to an oceanographer who is kind of versed in as to why you need to design these. So you have to kind of sort of bear with me. But my understanding is that the terminus effect is, that's just it. It's the actual cumulative effect, but it's appearing at the terminus. It's not that there's more erosion at the terminus. It's because the revetment is accreting and then it always presents itself at the terminus. So I don't believe that an additional amount of sand would be needed just to mitigate any issues at the end of the revetment. I think that's just kind of where it presents itself.
Okay.
The order of conditions at the end of 25 says sand shall be added to the southern end of the revetment on the return to help prevent increased erosion to the unprotected town property to the south. So I think that may be what Greg was referring to. Is that right?
Yep, that's right. And I'm because I know that there's more energy on that end, and that maybe that the sand that they calculated was not necessarily based simply on the basic calculation. Is that, if that's possible, that it was based on some calculation to make sure that that area was at least filled every year, based on the erosion, that's enhanced by the revetment. Because I noticed that the sand isn't being dumped on the revetment itself. The sand is being dumped, of course, on where the erosion occurs, which is unlike a lot of revetments. The sand's being dumped on the revetment. You're required to do that.
Yeah, I do know that they wanted it to, as opposed to protecting the client's structure, they wanted to protect the town property. So I believe that's why they wanted it placed there. So, I mean, obviously, we're happy to continue doing that.
Hillary?
And I think that's why I was just saying that it may not, whatever the number is, it may not be simply just what would have come off the bank, right? It may be, depending if you have a storm and you have a high energy situation there, you may lose a lot or you may not.
But they didn't memorialize any of that in the order of conditions. So I guess if we want to figure that out, we'd have to go back to see if there were any recordings of the hearing and the original filing, which we don't have ready access to. So I think we're in agreement at this point that we're going to go with the formula and 75 cubic yards. So if we could have a motion to approve the certificate of compliance with the commission also approving a change in nourishment based on the formula to 75 cubic yards with the ongoing condition of number 25, nourishment.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Chuck?
Yes, ma'am.
Not you, our Chuck.
Oh, sorry.
So I'm sure you'll vote yes as well. Greg,
Yes.
Joanne,
Yes.
Janet,
Yes.
and I am a yes. Okay, thank you so much.
I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
And next up is a certificate, no, next up is an administrative review filed by Gregory de Lizovo. Sorry, I'm mangling names tonight. Applicant proposes to remove 3 trees with mitigation at property located at 185 Mill Road, map 15, parcel 026. And I can see the applicants here. If you would like to just state who you are for the record and run through your project a little bit for us.
Thank you. My name is Gregory Delisavoy, and my wife, Jean Mitchell, and I are part-time residents at 185 Mill Road in Eastham. And we propose to remove 1 large tree of hell and 2 smaller tree of hells, and to, as mitigation, to plant a swamp white oak, which we've already selected at the farm, an 8-foot tree. It's a large tree.
Okay. And I know that our agent and some of the commission was out there today to have a look, and maybe I'll ask, I think, Greg, you were out there?
Sure, yeah. You're right. We took a look at the trees and the tree of hell. I guess, what's it called? What's the name of that tree?
Tree of heaven, technically, but
it seems to be this large tree that's common in that area that just takes over, is what I understand. Takes over your yard and is really out of control. So it seemed to me reasonable to replace it with a swamp white oak. I didn't have any problem with that.
Okay. And Alex, any comments? Anybody else? Okay, so we might have a motion to approve. Oh, we were going to talk about mitigation. Oh, so you have mitigation, the swamp oak. Okay, so if we could have a motion to approve with special conditions for tree pruning and removal.
So moved.
Okay, and a second?
Second.
Okay, Chuck?
Yes.
Joanne?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes.
Janet?
Yes.
And I am a yes. There you go, all approved. Thank you for joining us tonight.
thank you.
Next, we have a notice of intent filed by David and Jill Daigle. Applicant proposes to construct a single-family dwelling, attached garage, deck, landscaping, and a new septic system at property located at 3 Linwood Trace, map 14, parcel 83B. And John?
Good evening. Through the chair, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, John O'Reilly for the applicant. With us tonight is Mike Tanis from Blue Flax Design. I think Teresa Sprague may be here as well. Also with us is Jill Howard Daigle, one of the owners of the property. We're here tonight to hopefully obtain a order of conditions to allow the Daigles to construct a single-family home on a vacant piece of property on 3 Linwood Trace, which is adjacent to Great Pond. The wetland resources we're dealing with are land under the water body, the pond, small inland bank, a bordering vegetated wetland, and land subject to coastal storm flowage, has a base flood elevation of 10. The landward resource that we have established, the 50-foot buffer and the 100-foot buffer, is the BVW, which was flagged on the site. I don't know if any of you trounced through the brush, but we did flag it for you. We are proposing a single-family home on a lot that is just about 50,000 square feet in size and has a buildable upland of 41,580 square feet. We are proposing a 4-bedroom dwelling with an attached garage, a deck on the pond side, and a farmer's porch on the landward side. We positioned the house adjacent to a natural knoll on the property, on the southwest corner, adjacent to parcel 1483A. The grade is around elevation 16, 18. It rises up to about 20 and then plateaus for about 20, 30 feet and then begins to descend down to the BVW and Great Pond. So what we've done, and we've worked with architect from Peter McDonald's office, and he cited the building. So the building foundation itself is just about 78 feet away from the BVW. We do have a deck that will be supported by posts and sonotubes that is about 64 feet. And we've established a limit of work line about 53 feet away from the buffer. So the orientation of the limit of work does provide a footpath, if you will, around the deck. So the 50-foot buffer will remain intact. On this property is a pathway on the north side of the lot, on the opposite side from the road. There is a pathway that feeds down to Great Pond. There is an existing dock at the terminus of the pathway. This pathway will be utilized by the Daigles as well as the other folks that are in the area. It's a common pathway for pond access. The septic system is fully compliant with the state and local codes. We are providing enhanced treatment to address the nitrogen. We have positioned the septic system so we take advantage of the higher knoll. So we're putting the septic system in naturally occurring material. It does not need to be mounted. It provides more than 5 feet to an extreme high water line, groundwater level, excuse me. So we will be going to the Board of Health for approval of using the IA technology of an Advantech system. The roof runoff will be controlled by gutters, downspouts, or stone trenches under the drip lines. And again, those will be scattered around the house. The dry wells would be, or a stone trench line under the drip edges. The driveway is beyond the 100-foot buffer zone. So we're dealing with just a small portion of the deck and a portion of the dwelling within the 100-foot buffer. I've given you pages of review of performance standards and how they relate to the BVW, as well as the 8 interests of the Act. So at this point, I'd like to turn it over to either Teresa or Mike from Blue Flax, and they can describe the planting plan and the restoration report. Thank you.
Hello, good evening. Mike Tanis from Blue Flax Design. I'll start with existing conditions. The site is well canopied and forested, so the buffer zones are forested with a mix of native oaks and pines, understory black cherries, and service barrier found closer to the pond. The pond shore is a vegetated wetland with some Atlantic white cedar and a dense shrub layer of summer sweet, high bush blueberry, and winterberry. This dense shrub layer extends through basically throughout the 50-foot buffer, but much of the 50 to 100-foot buffer lacks a shrub layer and understory layer. A healthy native ground cover layer exists throughout the entire buffer zones: Pennsylvania sedge, Deschampsia grass, bearberry, reindeer lichen, and mosses closer to the pond. There are fallen tree trunks and large piles of brush from windstorms and damage that are covering native shrubs and tree saplings near the wetland, impeding their growth. So the main goal of this project is to protect the existing habitat both in the wetland and the buffer zone, and also to restore the shrub and understory layer in places where none currently exists. So before construction begins, a silt fence will be installed along the limit of work, and 6 flagged trees will be cut and removed from the site. After construction, the native vegetation within the limit of work will be allowed to regrow. It'll be assessed. If it's damaged, it may be flush cut or regeneratively pruned to promote healthy growth. Disturbed soils will be raked and seeded with a custom mix of native warm and cool season grasses. Those down tree trunks and brush that are covering native vegetation will be removed, but where practical, a lot of that brush will be left on the ground to decompose. After that, woody vegetation will be planted. There will be 7 trees to replace the 6 being removed, 3 eastern red cedars and 4 serviceberry, as well as 66 native shrubs, including bearberry, bayberry, and lowbush blueberry. The locations of the shrubs and trees are approximate on the plan because our goal mainly is to disturb as little as possible. So we're going to concentrate them in areas that are disturbed by the construction or that are bare and don't have a healthy ground or shrub layer. The tree trunks and brush that are covering native vegetation will be removed. Oh, I said that. So temporary irrigation will be required for the first 2 to 3 growing seasons while the plant's established. Once the plants are established, irrigation will be removed. The site will also be monitored through the subsequent growing seasons to ensure the health of the plantings and also to prevent any invasive vegetation from offsite or wherever from becoming established in the disturbed areas. So the site will be monitored closely throughout the project. And I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. I do note that while a lot of attention is spent on the DEP regulations and discussion of performance standards, that absolutely none is spent on a discussion of our local regulations and performance standards and land management plan. However, I think that the planting plan here certainly fits within our requirements of our land management regulations. I do have a question about the number of trees being planted, and maybe would like to see a little more, another tree or 2 put in here. I had some questions about the brush removal and how that would be done, and also of so brush removal. And then I think it would be advantageous to have a no disturb zone, and it looks like you're suggesting that basically in goal 2 here, to cease mowing within the buffer zone and allow native vegetation to regenerate. So I'd like to see that as a no disturb zone on the plans with some kind of delineation. So basically, I'm very pleased to see that you designed this so far back from the resource area and outside of the 50. And I think it's pretty much a well thought out plan. So those are my comments.
Okay, so.
And let's see what, go ahead.
Okay, so as far as planting more trees, there exists, especially within the 50, a lot of seedling and sapling oaks and pines that are ready to come up and fill in. And I think planting any more large trees would create more disturbance than benefit. And as far as the brush piles, they'll all be removed by hand. There'll be no machines in there. They'll just be hauled, dragged out. They'll be cut with a chainsaw and dragged out.
And about the no disturb zone?
Oh, yes, we can add, you just want that written on the plan, or?
And we usually require it to be delineated with some kind of boulders or rocks or something so that it's clear where that is.
Okay.
Which plan would you like to see that on?
I guess it would be on the, it should be on the site plan, I think. Alex,
Okay.
what do you think?
Yeah, typically we have those delineated on the site plan.
Okay, well, we can certainly talk to the Daigles and come up with a suitable, whether it be a cedar post or a boulder or something like that. Is that what you're looking for?
Yes.
Some demarcation of the area?
Yeah. Just as a reminder that that's what that is, and so we don't run into any problems later on. Is that
You never run into problems later on.
Okay. And questions from the commission? Janet?
Yes, I noticed that not a lot of the houses within the buffer zone. I'm wondering if it would be possible to move the whole house out of the 100-foot buffer completely.
The issue, through the chair, the issue with sliding, the house further back is that the grade drops off as you pull away from the plateau. And if you look at where we position the sewage system or the leaching facility directly in front of the house, we're trying to take advantage of that change in elevation. If we were to move the house back, we would lose that opportunity and would probably be looking at a system that might be placed in fill and might need some containment because of the groundwater that the lot has. I think the Daigles and Peter McDonald worked really hard to try to minimize the impact, and then Blue Flax has certainly come in and done their standard planning and benefit to the wildlife and the resource in general. I think it's a modest request. I think we're not certainly taking advantage of the highest points on this lot by pushing the house towards the pond. So we made a good faith effort to understand your concerns and trying to support the Daigles in having a house that will sit nicely on the property.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Joanne, anything?
I do agree with you with the delineating I just lost the term. Delineating the do not disturb, no disturb zone.
Okay. Chuck?
I think that the do not disturb zone is a good idea. I also think that if they're going to do that, they should put in a vista maintenance request for keeping some of the view open through certain corridors from major rooms like the living room and the master bedroom, because once that stuff is in place, they're not going to be allowed to prune, and they'll end up losing their view because stuff is just going to keep growing and growing, and ultimately they won't see anything. I think the two should go hand in hand.
Greg?
Yeah, Alex and I visited the site this morning, and it was clearly staked out. It was really well done there, and we could tell where the locations of the ends of the home and the garage were, and that was really good. And I was impressed with the fact that in the 50-foot zone, there didn't appear to be like any types of plans to like create a vista. And so I don't know, I was curious about the brush removal in that zone with respect to how they were going to, are they planning on doing it in the 50-foot zone, or are they just going to leave it as it is today? I'd like to see some information with respect to how they're going to do it. But
Sure.
the house appeared to be back very well, and I didn't have any other concerns.
Thank you. Through the chair, I have not had any conversations with the Daigles about vista pruning, but my experience with those types of projects is trying to pick a vista when the house isn't constructed and you don't know where your windows are specifically going to be and where your vistas are. Typically, you see vista projects come back after the house is at least framed. So commission members can stand in the house and say, yep, makes a good point to have the vista in that direction or this direction. And, you know, we could come back for an amendment, and I think that's how it would flow, is we would amend the order to establish a vista once the house is under construction, and then that would certainly be incorporated in to the management of that buffer area. Teresa or Mike, I don't know if you have anything to add to that, and I don't know if you've had any conversations with the owner as well.
We have not had any conversations with the owner about vista management.
Any other comments from? Oh,
Yeah,
sorry,
I
go
had a
ahead.
question for Mike. Mike, could you just talk a little bit about the removal of trees within the 50-foot zone with respect to impacts on the shrubbery, the shrubs that are growing? You mentioned there were some damaged shrubs in that area and that you're going to clean them up.
Yes, so in the past, some of the trees have blown down, and there's just, I remember one oak tree specifically, a sapling that's just kind of growing sideways, trying to get around this log. So our field crew will just walk in there, cut the big logs into chunks they can carry 3-4 feet long and walk it out. Any small brush, branches and stuff will just be dropped to the ground. The main thing is just to free up any of the native shrubs and trees underneath it and to minimize the disturbance as much as possible.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Jill, we'll go to you and then Teresa.
Hi, this is Jill Howard. I'm the owner of the property at 3 Linwood Trace. We did have conversations about taking some of the dead and fallen trees out of the 50-foot buffer zone. We've owned the property for a number of years and a number of storms have gone through. And so there is a number of dead things that we would like to have removed, or at least, you know, laid to the ground so that they're not a hazard to our children. But that's it. And maybe Teresa could address that a little further.
Thank you. Teresa?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. I was actually just going to say that I did have that conversation with Jill, and to Mike's point, mainly removing the fallen debris, it's really prohibiting some of the Atlantic white cedar and some of the other vegetation from growing. And so removing that so that we can continue to maintain the existing native vegetation and plant community that was there was the #1 goal. And I think when we do remove some of that debris, a lot of it's standing and hanging dead limbs, that will maintain a vista for the Daigles. But I also agree with John that to formalize any sort of a view or vista management plan, we'd really like to have the house under construction so that we can see which rooms are going to, which rooms they'd prefer to have some vista management to allow them to continue to maintain a view. In my experience, just as John stated, it's always better to do that once the house is under construction, simply because it's hard to guess. It's much better to stand in the actual constructed house and kind of look out with the commission.
Okay. Does that answer your question, Greg?
Yeah, and it actually sounds like a very efficient way to do it, because that way you know exactly what areas you need to clean a little bit to see what you want to see. It just sounds more efficient than just doing a more broader approach.
Okay, so let's see, any abutters have any questions or concerns they wish to share with the commission? I see none. Okay, so it sounds to me like this is something we might be able to permit tonight, that we are looking for, in particular, the delineation of the no disturb area and added to the plan, and then for a either rocks or posts or something to be added. And I think we can condition that to be worked out with our agent during the construction process. That sound right, Alex? Okay. So if somebody might make a motion to approve this project with our standard conditions for our special conditions for single family dwelling with landscaping, with the condition that a no disturb zone be created with delineation to be posts or rocks of the applicant's choice in consultation with the agent. And I think that is it.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Joanne?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes.
Chuck?
Yes.
Janet?
Yes.
And I am a yes. So
Right.
you are done.
Thank you very
so
much.
much.
Have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have a notice of intent filed by Michael Nargi and Carrie Picard. Applicant proposes to demolish the existing dwelling and guest house, construct a new residence, install a plunge pool, construct beach access stairs, a snowdrift fence, propose mitigation and septic system upgrade at property located at 435 Shirtlift Road, map 07, parcel 142A. And Ben
Good
Zender, welcome.
Good evening. For the record, Sean Riley with Time Bond representing the applicant. I believe we have the applicants online with us. We also have a number of other team members online. As you just stated, we have attorney Ben Zender. We have Ian Peach from Wilkinson Ecological. We have the architect builder, Rob McPhee and Kendra Seifert from McPhee Associates. We have Cole Bateman from Ty and Bond. This is a challenging site. So we met with a number of staff from the town. We met with Alex, the town planner, community development, Board of Health agent, the building commissioner, to seek some feedback for anybody that got to the site. It is a constrained site with the resource areas. And if I could share my screen, I will just give you a quick walkthrough for anybody that did not have a chance to get to the site. The resource areas on the site are a coastal bank with nourishment over an existing revetment. Behind that, we have a dunal area that abuts the Town of Eastham parking lot. And then there's a land subject to coastal storm flowage that comes through the parking lot and enters the property on the Shirtlift Road side, which I have highlighted in blue here on the screen, which enters into the site and abuts the coastal dune area. The existing septic system is located within the flood zone and immediately adjacent to it. There's an existing garage and guest cottage that's down in the flood zone, gravel driveway, bocce court, and originally there was a timber retaining wall that was installed basically to hold the area at bay around those use areas. And then there's the main dwelling that has 2 access points on a gravel driveway with an existing wood deck, flagstone patio, and other site amenities with a timber step leading down to the lower area. This lot is challenging in that we have very limited space outside of the 50-foot buffer and the no disturb zone that we can retreat to. We're pushed up against the setbacks I've highlighted the zoning setbacks because I think it's important to see what we're constrained up against. Not only the street setback, but the sideline setback is not parallel to the water. It angles into the property. So the further that you move the house back on the property towards Shirtlift Road, the further that you're actually moving it to the north and into the 50-foot buffer. So I think that the architect did a good job of trying to consolidate, and our main objective was to have a coastal resilient design by trying to remove everything from the flood zone and also having an environmentally responsive design to essentially, in removing those things from the flood zone, to including the retaining walls, to reestablish the grades that were probably there pre-construction of that guest cottage and bocce court by grading out in that area. And I'll jump over to the, can you see the proposed condition now?
Yes.
So to essentially consolidate the use areas to areas of the property that we can, that are furthest away from land subject to coastal storm flowage, creating more of a vegetative buffer, allowing the dune to be able to migrate back away from the water. One of the big things that we're doing with that in removing that is any potential for waterborne debris from any flooding events. We've relocated the septic system as far as possible to the street side of the property, away from the resource areas. We've been before the Board of Health. They wanted your comment before they would vote on the system. There is a 3-bedroom design with IA technology for enhanced treatment. We are maintaining the 3 bedrooms. We're not increasing the bedroom counts or the size of the system. And we're actually seeking variances from the Board of Health to push it an extra 5 feet towards the property line to get it that extra distance away from the resource areas. With this design, we've essentially moved the garage and living space from the lower area to the upper area, held the essentially the existing location of the primary dwelling and the footprint of the patios that are adjacent to that. There is a small wall, landscape wall, that is to the seaward side of the patio that we'd like to rebuild. Another one of the constraints of this property is that the topography falls off on the garage side. So the further that we push it towards the flood zone and towards the north, the more the grade drops off within that area. We've also included proposal for a beach access stair. There's currently no access on the property down to the beach. The roof runoff will be routed to dry wells or drip strips around the edge of the house. And within the one of the patio spaces, we are proposing a small plunge pool within that area of development. The driveway is being consolidated from 2 entrances to a single entrance with access into the garage with a backup and turnaround area. Again, trying to consolidate this into a more compact human use area, and then creating more of a vegetative buffer to the resource areas. And with that, I'll turn it over to Ian Peach from Wilkinson Ecological to discuss the restoration plan that they've prepared.
Thank you, Sean. For the record, Ian Peach, representing the project from Wilkinson Ecological Design. Appreciate you just keeping the restoration plan up, Sean. Well, I just make sure I introduce it in the proper context. What you're seeing represented here in the green that's surrounding the proposed dwelling, as Sean kind of built the story, and where how we're trying to work there, is a real effort to make a robust encircling restoration in everywhere possible. You notice we're staying out of the dune. that is a community that we, as you know, we want to see migrate, we want to conserve and protect, as well as the coastal bank. So the effort is to acknowledge those functioning and the functioning capacity of those resource areas, and with every area possible with the undevelopment and the redevelopment, restore a native plant community. Something I should speak to is we've specifically looked at how our plant community can have a lasting impact for wildlife habitat. So we go out and we look at adjacent plant communities. We know these areas well. And in ecological restoration, we're trying to not just mitigate and restore and get plants in the ground, but really have a plant community that is designed off of an understanding of these natural plant communities and will thrive, increase that functional capacity for these resource buffers surrounding the proposed dwelling. It also will increase the ability to filter and infiltrate stormwater. And definitely the thing we'd like to bring into this project on top of that understanding of that base plant community for this coastal context is to find a little opportunity to increase biological diversity. So we're proposing 17 native trees and 33 native maritime shrubs. In addition, throughout that project area, everywhere you're seeing will be seeded with a native seed mix, and anywhere where there's slope, we use erosion control blankets. That's like a living mulch initially set. So you have this diverse, infiltrating, ground holding native grass layer. We then plant into that with the shrubs and trees. And in this case, we're also bringing in 10 different native flowering herbaceous species, specifically chosen for that coastal resiliency goal, for that biodiversity goal, and really that additional benefit for pollinators. It really is in this way a restoration project we're trying to do. As you can see, it's touching up against every hardscape possible and staying out of areas where the natural communities are intact. The overall takeaway I think I want you to have is that we're looking to enhance those buffers, and we're striving to restore as much as feasible those areas of disturbance with very appropriate plants and plant communities for this coastal location. I talked about learning from exactly what's on site and what's working and leveraging that. I think that's really important, and we've done that. And then I just want to hammer home that last added enhancement of really trying to not only bring in just a simple maritime plant community, but you'll see depicted on the plan the smallest green circles that are spread throughout. Those are representative in our key in our specification of those native grasses and forbs that are targeting pollinators and bringing them that pollen and nectar resource. So that's our logic for this restoration, and we're really puzzle piecing it in to all the good work that the team has done. So I'm happy to speak to any methods or further to anything, but I wanted to make sure I was able to introduce our logic for the native plant restoration of this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Where to start here? Let's start with the easy one. Our regulations, 7F, do not allow for pools in the 0 to 50 foot buffer zone. And you do have a pool here within the 50 foot buffer, 0 to 50 foot buffer zone.
So through the chair, yes, just looking at that, with the consolidation of the human use areas, we looked at other positions to put some sort of amenity to replace the amenities that they're losing. We really couldn't find a better place to position this small plunge pool. And this seemed to be the location that within a patio space that made the most sense. And we're hoping that with all of the good work that we're doing with the restoration within area of land subject and adjacent to the dunal area, this could be something that could be, that a variance could be sought for with the overall benefits of this application.
Okay, the pool regulations specifically say that there will be no waivers given for pool location. You haven't addressed the pool regulations at all in the narrative that you've submitted. So, and it has some very specific provisions. So I think think you need to look at that a little further.
Understood.
And then if you could show us where the setback lines are, because I really think the house needs to come back a little further from the resource areas.
Sure. Let me just throw those.
And then I also want to talk about patios and hardscaping.
Can you see the?
Could you enlarge that?
Sure.
It's really small.
Yep. Let me zoom in. So these are the side and the front setback lines.
Where are you pointing?
Can you see the purple?
Oh, the purple.
Yeah, the purple line of the setbacks from the street and from the sideline. So there is the potential to move the house back a couple of feet, but we're going to be running into the side setback. As we start to progress back towards the septic system. And I'm not sure that we're going to gain enough from relocating. We actually looked at several different configurations with the garage, but unfortunately, where the property line is angled, it doesn't make it easy to retreat towards the street from where we've got this positioned in the location where the existing house is, and also the further back that we do move it, we are now chasing the grading around the house. We've already got a 2-foot reveal on the backside of the garage, due to the topography dropping off significantly where they have the retaining walls on the backside of the garage. And the other note for that is the elevation change between the water side of the house and the street side of the house is about 5 feet. So trying to hold that floor level and we're already 1.5 to 2 feet below the top of the coastal bank, without cutting further down and dropping the level of the building, which would cause more disturbance. We're really kind of stuck with the topography and trying to make this work with the topography that we have.
Let me think on that a little bit. So talk about your hardscaping here. It seems like quite a lot in the.
So again, looking at the overall project, we're reducing the usable space of the property significantly by several thousand square feet, which isn't really shown because we've only given you the coverages for the actual physical features like the bocce court, but we're losing all the spaces around or giving up all the spaces around the bocce court, around the house to really consolidate everything down. So their usable spaces now are really the patio. Any exterior spaces are the patio. So just looking to refine that and bring everything in to utilize those spaces. Those really are the only spaces that we have available. And we tried to maintain the footprint of the existing areas around the house that were there on the water side with a modest addition of patio on the north side of the house. Again, to capture any of that usable space that they're losing with the filling in of the lower portion of the property. Those would all be pervious, set on a sand bed. So again, all that, the patio would be pervious and that could be conditioned.
And are those pervious pavers or what is?
They would probably be either a flagstone or a bluestone, but they would all be set on a sand bed with a stone base. So it could all with broad joints. So for full percolation through those joints. So they wouldn't be mortared.
So you didn't give us any alternative analyses when you submitted this, and we usually expect to see that when we get a notice of intent. So what else did you look at here? And actually, could you provide us with alternative analysis?
Yeah, we can absolutely provide you with an alternatives analysis. It was redeveloping within the existing footprints of what were there. But we felt that the most obvious approach was to try to consolidate and make the most coastal resilient design we could by retreating from the flood zone and relocating in an area that is in an area that's already disturbed, but also back into areas that we can retreat to within the 50 to 100 foot buffer zone for the access points to the garage. And again, we looked at different scenarios of having the guest cottage reconstructed down in that area. We felt that there's much more benefit to relocate it rather than redevelop that area. With the removal of the retaining walls in the bocce court down in that area, there's a lot more connectivity for wildlife corridors, habitat. So this really just seemed like the only alternative to redevelop the property was to try and retreat. And as Ian said, to create a much more diversified vegetative buffer around essentially the entire human use area, right up to the extents of them.
All right, so I think we would still like to see maybe that in writing. And then I noticed that the septic outline is not on the plan. And there is a septic system you're removing. So what is the procedure?
Yeah, they are actually, let me just zoom in. We have the outline of the proposed 3-bedroom septic shown here in the dashed line.
It doesn't seem to be shown on the printed plans.
Oh, sorry. We can darken that up and resubmit that plan. And then again, the existing system is shown to be removed and abandoned per the state and local regulations that's down in the lower area within the flood zone. We can definitely enhance the.
Have you thought about removing it entirely?
The septic system?
Yeah, the old septic.
Oh, yeah, that we could do that. I mean, that could be a condition of the approval. Essentially, it's just a stone in chambers. When the system, the leaching field is abandoned, essentially everything just dries out. So the tank can be pumped and removed. We could have that condition for the tank to be pumped and removed. That's not a problem.
Good. I'm gonna open it up to other people's questions and maybe come back to myself later. So, anybody want to start? Janet, of course. Go ahead, Janet. You have to unmute.
Sorry. I share several of the concerns that Karen has. I understand with the garage that in what would be the northeast corner, I can see the contours, and you're trying to stay within the contours. But I do share the idea that it would be preferable to move the house farther from the resource area. That's number one. Number two, we do not permit a pool within the 50-foot buffer at all. Number three, what you show for the proposed beach stairs, and I don't think you've gone into much detail on this. I can understand the beach stairs, but I don't understand why there's that large square there at what would be the bottom of the stairs. That I don't see an explanation for. And I would like removing the old septic system. And I think that should be documented as well. I think that's it.
Do you want to talk a little bit about the beach stairs?
Yeah, yes, through the chair. That probably would save further questions if we could just walk through the design of the stairs. So I think the easiest thing to look at is the profile of the stairs down below. Essentially, what we're looking to do is an elevated timber stair above the bank on a embedded helical pile. And then where it gets down to the revetment, what we'd look to do, and the reason why you have the large square is essentially because of the grade change and the shift of where the stairs need to carry down a few extra feet. Basically, we're chasing grade down here, and the stairs, the rise and the run of the stairs won't allow us to continue straight down. So we actually have to turn the stair to catch up with the grade below it. And then to where the revetment starts, we would essentially reconfigure those stones within the revetment to allow us to anchor granite steps within the revetment. So they'd essentially become part of the revetment and act as part of the revetment. And within the velocity zone, we wouldn't have to have any concerns about waterborne debris. The stair to the south on the neighboring property has a similar design to this, where they have a wooden stair coming down to where the revetment starts. And then where that revetment starts, they have essentially anchored in steps into the revetment. So that's the reason why the shifting and just the larger area is just a reconfiguration of the stones so that we can best fit those granite steps and anchor those steps in a way that will be sustainable. So with that, I can open up to any more questions you may have on the stair, or if you want to continue with other commissioner comments.
Yeah, Janet, why don't you just keep going?
Yes.
Let me know when you're done.
Oh, okay. I am even wondering why you have to have the stairs there when the property is adjacent to Campground Beach. It
Yes.
would be very easy to access the beach from there instead of constructing these the steps and the treads and the risers and so on.
Understood. And the reason for that, for the stair, the accessibility of the stair is people typically traverse through the easiest A to B points. We know that watching people walking on sidewalks, they take the most accessible route, and this seemed to be the most environmentally friendly way for them to get to the beach and access the beach as the others do within the neighborhood, to traverse down from the house to the beach in the most easily accessible, environmentally responsible way to get to the beach.
Anything more, Janet?
Nope.
Okay, I just want to ask then, it's not environmentally friendly to walk down a few yards or whatever to the beach, to the public beach, to access the beach? You're assuming that they get in the car to drive down to the public beach to access the beach? When you say that?
Yeah, no, I guess, if they didn't live right on the beach, they also, anybody that has any age, that's it's not an easy walk. I know that I have a father that's 80 years old, and I know that he wouldn't be able to make that walk down to the beach. He'd probably make it halfway down the stairs and take a break before he made the traverse to the rest of the stairs. Walking to the bathroom. So,
Yeah, and through the chair, if I may.
Yeah.
This has been Zender. Look, the applicants own it. This is a very valuable property, obviously. And this property has property rights that include ownership of the beach, and access to that beach. To deny them the ability to use that access is a significant detriment to the property value when you balance that against the fact that the way that Tybon has engineered these structures, they're not going to create any adverse impact of any of the interests to be protected. The stairways that they're designing are built right into the revetment. The stairway is elevated. It meets all your construction protocols. So we're really demonstrating no adverse impact from this. So to tell the applicant that they can't have a stairway is really not based on your wetlands bylaw or your own standards. It's just based on the idea that they can't use their own stairway. So, it's something that's very important to the applicant.
Right, and you're really jumping the gun there, because we're just asking questions at the moment and nobody has mentioned anything other. And I was merely responding to the fact that apparently building a stairs is more environmentally friendly than walking. So
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Ms. Strauss. Okay.
Okay, so questions. Greg, anything from you?
Yes, I was just wondering if there's any concern with respect to the bank stability and having the patio so close to the top of the bank. Has anyone looked into that to see if there is a problem there at all or a concern?
Yeah, no, there is no concern. There's essentially there's a patio there now, and there's no signs of it distress along that bank. We've taken an extensive look at the bank stability.
Sean, do you mind if I tag in here?
Sure.
Hi, I'm Cole Bateman. I'm a project manager with Iron Bond as well. Kind of focusing more on the structure of the stairs itself. So there's been a pretty comprehensive analysis going into the set of stairs, including a slope stabilization analysis where we assumed some soil properties and then just applied the loads that were part of the stairs to see if there would be any difference in the slope stability based on the presence of the stairs in the patio. And the result of that analysis with the 1.5 factor of safety was absolutely none. And if I can just expand a little bit more on some of the stair construction and the reasoning behind it. So there's 3 resource areas that the stairs are within. It's coastal beach, the coastal bank, and then the land subject to coastal storm flowage. So we believe that we're meeting the performance standards of each of them. The coastal beach is, it's the smaller portion of the project where we're just really relocating an existing revetment stone. So it's really no impact at all to any of that. The coastal bank is the main concern here, I think, and the fact that this coastal bank is not a nourishment contributing bank. It's already it has a revetment on it. We're really just resetting the stones to have a set of stairs incorporated into the already existing structure. And then lastly, for the land subject to coastal storm flowage, we're constructing the timber portion of the stairs above the base flood elevation to prevent any storm debris from entering the resource area. So to Ben and Sean's points, we're really trying to design these structures responsibly and in accordance with every performance standard that the 3 resource areas have. So thank you.
Quick question, do you have any revegetation planned for the stairs once you've constructed them? Because there's going to be some disturbance to the bank.
Yes, the structure, the helical piles that will be used to install for the structure will be done by a manual rig. There will need to be some excavator access down to reset some of the stones. So to your point, there will be some restoration portion part of this, but I think that is part of the WED design. And we are following I think it's the dock provisions, whether, not really applicable to this project other than the fact that we're incorporating the gaps in the decking to facilitate any growth beneath the stairs that could come back. So we're trying to use the existing regulations as much as possible in the design here.
Okay, thank you.
Joanne, anything from you?
Yeah, I'm trying to review carefully. I do note that it looks like the area where the patio would be is an already disturbed area. So I appreciate that although a lot of the construction is within the 50-foot buffer, it's not in undisturbed areas. So I can appreciate that. I did have one question, and I also appreciate that it looks like kind of the detached garage and guest house are being taken away, which helps with the mitigation. Noting that there's some potential disturbance with the stairs, although it sounds like there's been some careful analysis. I wanted to ask about the additional existing gravel driveway that would be over where the detached garage currently is. Noting that that gravel driveway may be used for construction, but because it is within the 50-foot buffer, I'm curious if there's any way that could be removed as an additional mitigation measure, or if it's something that the owners would consider just to kind of return some of the space within the 50-foot buffer back to nature. So is that something you would consider looking at?
We can discuss that with the applicant. We actually discussed that a little bit, and we can further that discussion. They do have an extensive family that come to visit, so but we can have that discussion further with them.
Yeah, I just note that I think that would go a long way in mitigating some of this. But I do want to say I respect that you have done the best you can given this tight plan. So I appreciate that. Thanks.
Okay, Chuck?
I am pretty happy with the whole thing. The one question that I do have has to do with the lowermost part of the proposed stairs. I can see that in your plan, your intent is to install some large granite slabs into the revetment to use that as the lower part of the stairs with no rail and some sort of pins holding them together. It's not specified what the pins are made of, and I would hope that they're going to be some high-grade stainless steel. But what I was thinking about is the ice run-up that we have in the winter, and whether ice flows stacking up and impinging on the lowermost timbers or some of the higher steps is going to become problematic. We typically ask people to use like aluminum retractable stairs for the lowermost portion of these things. You just put it down in the warm season and pull it up for the stormy season. Have you any thought of that?
I'll take this one, I suppose, Sean. So thanks for the question. And then to answer the last one, the question about whether or not to use retractable stairs, I think it's kind of answered with the same reason why we're proposing an embedded set of stairs, and it's to limit the the amount of maintenance and human intervention to limit the amount of damage in land subject to coastal storm flow. Which I think regardless of whether or not that thing's removed seasonally, if there was a May 22nd storm or something that came through during a normal season, like there's a very good, strong possibility that it could damage, the resource areas if a temporary or removable access could be provided. So I think it sounds like you have some good construction background knowledge, but yeah, the proposed solution here would be stainless steel smooth dowels to anchor the rock steps with epoxy anchorings into the revetment below. So each one would be interlocked with each other to prevent or to help against the prevention of uplift from both ice, water, and then also to allow some movement with a flexible smooth dowel joint. So thanks for those questions.
Alex, anything from you?
I don't have anything to add. I think it's been pretty well covered.
Okay. I just want to get back a little bit to the planting plan here. Do you have a timeline or an idea in mind about when the plantings are going to go in related to the rest of the work? And I'm wondering if perhaps there could be maybe some more diversity in the shrubs, diversity of species.
Great. So in this case, it's not a very invaded area, thankfully, in terms of state listed invasive plants. We have noted a 3,000 square foot area where we have found Asiatic bittersweet that are starting to displace the ability of those of the adjacent native plant to move, to reseed, and certainly would hinder the restoration project. So there'll be simply mechanical removal done right in line with construction, again, aligning and limiting disturbance as part of the mantra here. And because of that, all of these areas will be really coincide directly. Like as soon as an area is finished being disturbed and regraded, we will come in, seed, blanket, set up that base, and we'll be able to plant, unlike a typical project that might, or a type of invasive plant management project where you're like 60, 70, 80% invaded. We often will wait a year to manage those invasive plants. In this case, we really feel like we can restore both for erosion and getting things established right on the tail of the construction activities and regrading sequence. So we'll be working closely with the team on that. In regard to shrub diversity, it seems limited when you read it, but these are the tried and true maritime shrubs that are going to be lasting. I could probably offer you a couple more, and it might get to the COC, but in terms of shrubs that you're going to see adjacent to here were beach plum that have been here for decades, and how bayberry will perform in this coastal environment, and then the Carolina rose as a lower woody flowering plant. But it is something we're open to. I certainly could expand the species a little bit, but I just wanted to reiterate the logic was really we're trying to make a lasting plant community here in terms of mitigation.
Right, and I understand that, but there are other species that also would do well in that area. I do want to say that I do appreciate what you've chosen in the native grasses and forbs. I think that's a lovely selection that'll provide some habitat and some food over multiple times of the year. So I think that's really very nice.
Great. Yeah, I appreciate these questions and comments, and we're absolutely happy to expand, that shrub list.
So I should ask if there are any abutters who have any questions. Oh, if you could drop the screen sharing.
Sure.
Are there any abutters here who would like to ask any questions, make any comments? Okay. Any more comments from the commission? Okay, so it seems like what we're looking for, we're going to need to continue, that we're looking for the alternative analyses, looking further at that extra driveway, looking at the pool to come out, and with the alternatives analysis, a further look at pulling the house further back from the resource areas. Alex, do you think I covered everything?
Yeah, through the chair.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, thank you. I'm sorry, Alex. I'm no little clear about the alternatives analysis. I mean, we're not dealing with a dock or a waiver which requires that. Are you just looking for some rationale from the engineer as to why we didn't do something else?
Well, usually we do require some alternative analysis with a notice of intent project, that they're looking at why this particular location, why it's this close to the bank, why it couldn't be maybe rotated and pulled back a little bit, or otherwise configured so that it's not so close to the coastal bank and the resource areas.
Okay, well,
What else has been explored to help pull it a little further back from the resource areas, and is this the best configuration for the location?
Okay, we'll look at it.
Okay, I appreciate it. Alex?
I also made note that the commission wanted a couple more shrubs, as far as the diversity of shrubs. The septic system should be darkened on the plan that the commission received. I think it's just a layer issue. And then we want to make a note that the old septic system will be removed completely.
Right. That's what I missed from my earlier notes. Okay, so are you clear, I think?
We are clear.
Okay, so when would be a good time to resume, to continue to? Our next meeting is July 22nd, and the meeting after that is July 12th. I mean, August 12th. July 22nd or August 12th.
Well, through the chair, I'd really leave that to Sean's team. If we go, I think what we'd like to do is have you continue to the 22nd. If we don't think we can make it, we'd like to submit a request for further continuance, if you don't mind.
That would be fine.
Great.
Just keep Alex informed.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate that.
Okay, if we could have a motion to continue to July 22nd.
Move to continue to July 22nd.
And is there a second?
Second?
Greg?
Yes.
Joanne?
Yes.
Can I ask who made the second?
Greg.
Okay. Just trying to keep up. Chuck?
Yes.
Janet?
Yes.
And I got Joanne, so I'm a yes. Okay, thank you so much. We'll see you hopefully in a couple of weeks.
Thank you, everybody.
All right. Next, we have a continuation of notice of intent filed by Cape Holden Realty Trust. Applicant proposes to construct a new family dwelling at property located at 339 Dyer Prince Road, map 19, parcel 111.
Thank you, Karen and David Little, and thank you, members of the board. So the submitted materials that we provided included a tree inventory as requested to be removed within the limit of work, which are predominantly cedars. I believe there are a couple of cherries. A redacted copy of a contract with Blue Flax Design to prepare a turtle protection plan in compliance with the NHESP requirements, a variance request, and a revised plan. The revised plan shows a reduced footprint of the two-bedroom dwelling from the original submission, which also includes an IA component for the septic system. We did raise the first floor elevation a foot per the request of one of the commissioners in an earlier hearing. And we've provided some mitigation notes on the plan. On the plan, we've hatched a couple of areas. The site is very tight. We're working for the most part within the 50-foot buffer completely. And we're proposing that we plant beach plum and bayberry in clusters, 3-gallon containers, 4 to 6 feet on center. Up near the road, we don't have the opportunity to add any cedar trees. We could in other areas down toward the southeast corner of the property, but the utilities come in the northeast corner, and we have the septic reserve in the southeast corner. So that's why we're pretty much proposing the woody shrubs that we are. The proposed activities in the ACEC include the construction of a driveway, installation of utilities, and the mitigation plannings. It's not possible to access the site without going through the Inner Cape Cod Bay ACEC. And the amount of disturbance that would occur within that is 1,520 square feet. And the mitigation that we proposed for the site constitutes approximately 2,140. So unlike the previous two applications where you had very large properties and an opportunity to do a lot of mitigation, we don't have that here. We're working with a lot that is considered buildable. I provided you with the tax assessor's records. It's assessed in excess of $500,000, and the owners have been paying taxes on it for a significant period of time. So we've tried to do everything possible to locate a modest dwelling in the southeast corner of this lot with a gravel driveway to allow the owners of the property to sell it to the applicants. So I don't really know what more I can provide to the commission at this point, but I would like to open it up to questions, Karen. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to go to a question, an area that we haven't discussed before to start with. And I also note that this is our third hearing over 2.5 months. So the septic system, we haven't discussed the installation of that and how that is going to be accessed through the property and what vegetation is going to need to be removed for the septic system, the mitigation for that, and any mitigation along the access path.
So everything, I think to answer your question, Karen, everything between the limit of work and the easterly property line and the southerly property line is going to be disturbed.
Mm-hmm.
the entire site will be disturbed with this project. It is a perk right dispersal field, which allows a reduction in the size of it for the property. It's elevated, so we meet Title V requirements. I attended a Board of Health meeting earlier when we were proposing a bigger dwelling, and they indicated that they were ready to approve it, but I told them that we still had issues with the Conservation Commission, and they did not want to make any approval until we made it through this body in the event that we do. So we do have a positive response from them. It's an IA system. And as I noted in the construction documents or in the protocol, the area right around the immediate dwelling will be planted with eco lawn. It's a fescue that's doesn't require watering. It'll survive well in this area. But I think to answer your question, the entire lot will be disturbed within the limit of work and the property lines.
Mm-hmm. So the question is also, is there going to be any tree removal in the ACEC to access the septic installation?
So I provided you with a list of all of the trees that are proposed to be removed on the lot, and none of them are within the ACEC. They're all located between the 50-foot buffer and the property lines.
Okay, and
That's
other
why,
than,
excuse me?
go ahead.
That's why because we have the driveway and because we have the utilities, I've just proposed the beach plum and bayberry. We do have the opportunity to put a maybe 2 or 3 cedars adjacent to the driveway where it comes in, but I wouldn't propose any other type of tree. I mean, it's predominantly a cedar, a lot with cedars on it with a pretty native understory.
Okay, so will there be vegetation removal in the ACEC?
Yes, everything within the limit of work, from the limit of work going east to the property line where we show utilities, Karen, and the driveway, that will be disturbed. There is no way to access the property without going through the ACEC. We have no way to access the upland portion of the property without doing that. And I understand that that's where we're kind of at loggerheads, but I don't have any other answer for you.
And you haven't done any alternatives analysis on alternative ways to access the property or access for construction?
There is no other alternative. Any access to the property would be going, no, there is no alternative, Karen. This is really all we have. It is what it is. I don't have a team like WED with me. I'm here to work with the applicants to try and work on a very small portion of this lot. I understand it's sensitive, but I don't really have that much to add.
Okay. So you did provide, I see, some mitigation, but not mitigating the trees. And just do the calculations for me. Your mitigation area versus the amount of disturbance on the property.
Oh, it's much less. I would say it's probably a quarter of the amount of disturbance on the property. This is the problem when you disturb a natural habitat. I've run into this in towns over the years. It's impossible to mitigate for something when you're disturbing a pristine area of property. It can't, there's nothing that you can do to accomplish it.
Right. So here's where I am on this. But we had asked you also under the regulations, the mitigation does require, we do require more mitigation than this. We also asked you to address the way that was addressing the land management plan. We had also asked you to address section 4A1, which is the consideration of the project's adaptation to potential climate change impacts. And we discussed that at the last meeting on May 13th, and you haven't included that here. And then we get to the ACEC, and section 3A and section 3B both preclude the work that you're proposing here. So then we turn to what your submission that you call a variance, and the commission has very specific requirements for what we call a waiver in the bylaw and in the regulations. Have you reviewed those?
I have, Karen, and to respond to your comments, there is no other alternative for this. I have requested a variance from the ACEC regulations with respect to climate resiliency. It's a flood zone. One of your commissioners requested that we raise the top of foundation an extra foot to provide a little freeboard. We've done that. I've addressed you don't have performance standards for land subject to coastal storm flowage in your regulations, but I provided you some standards in my narrative. So we're really at a point where either this project can move forward or it can't, and this would be considered a taking. I mean, this is a very valuable piece of property for the town that people have been paying money on for quite some time. I mean, I'm more than happy to provide you additional information, to provide you a narrative of climate resiliency. But before I do so, I would like to hear from you and all the other commissioners whether it's worth my time to do it, because I'm not getting any positive vibes from the commission at this point.
Well, you've also had 3 meetings in which to provide us with information that should have been provided a lot of this at the first meeting, at the first hearing.
Well,
and that we've asked you at the second hearing for, and here we are at the third one that we don't have. But just looking at the waiver discussion, that the commission has very specific requirements to applying for a waiver, and you don't seem to have addressed most of them. The proper, going further, the ACEC regulations were adopted in 1988. The property was acquired by the applicant in 1990. So they should have had no.
Excuse me, Karen, that's incorrect. The applicant's family has owned this for quite a long period of time. It changed, it went into a trust in 1990.
In 2013, according to the assessor's database, the property was purchased in 1990 and acquired switched into the trust in 2013, according to town records.
So I guess I haven't heard from any of the other commissioners, but this is a very difficult site. Climate resiliency, I could put together a narrative on climate resiliency. I could do this, I could do that, but I'm not so sure that's going to make a difference between you and the other commissioners. If it is, I would be happy to do that, Karen.
Right.
What I don't want to do is continue this again to get it denied, because I think that the facts are before you. I mean, doing narratives, addressing bylaws, that's not going to make a difference in the project. I think the facts are before the commission. And I think the commission, if you feel that it's important for me to address these other issues, I will do that. But that being said, I would like to hear from the other commissioners. Otherwise, let's vote up.
Yeah, I'm going to say that I am done with waiting for additional information. That 3 hearings where you didn't provide it is
So
plenty.
is
So
that
I am
why?
ready to
And is
make
that
a
a basis
decision.
for your denial, the additional information?
That is part of it, but also the ACEC, and we have a specific requirements for waivers in our bylaw and regulations that you did not address. And I don't think that your variance request meets those requirements.
That's fine.
But
can I hear from the other commissioners, please?
And yeah, of course you can. And who would like to go? Greg?
Yeah, I mean, I've been into the site 3 times, maybe 4 times. And you're right, David, it's a very delicate, I mean, it's a very sensitive site. And it's probably one of the more sensitive sites that I visited in the last couple of years I've been on the commission. And I do have some serious concerns about the site. And I think it kind of came to the point, kind of the peak when the variance with the ACEC. I think that was a new issue on our I think the meeting before last, and I have some reservations with respect to that.
Thank you.
Okay. Joanne?
I think I agree that the information we have to determine this under our bylaws is not there yet. I will note that the driveway in particular is challenging in my mind. I keep thinking to myself, well, do you really need a driveway? Well, I think most people in Eastham would need a car. But that said, theoretically, you could construct a house and then not have a driveway for a car in theory, although that doesn't seem very practical to me. I think I might be digressing from the main point. That is, I do think my mind is not made up on the merit of this construction plan because of the, I think what is it, you have to demonstrate that there won't be an adverse effect. And I don't know that we've seen sufficient analysis to make that determination. I think that's the critical turning point on this. I recognize it's challenging, much like Greg said. I'm happy to consider additional information that would be to the satisfaction of the commission. So that's where I am right now.
Thank you.
Chuck?
You've got a problem with the ACEC stuff, and I would wonder if just placing a parking area right up by the road and some sort of permeable pathway down to the house could be acceptable. I don't know whether it could be. I don't know whether you could, I haven't looked to see whether the town's got the first 8 feet of the property outside the road here or whether their property goes right up to the road. But the larger concern for me, I'm not concerned. I think you can build something that meets performance criteria, but you've still got this hurdle of the ACEC's existence there, which is a state thing. It's not ours, right? And we're bound by their regulatory constraints. So I'm not sure that even I've heard enough to think that you're going to be able to get past that. We could say, okay, go ahead and do it, and then they're going to come in and maybe override us and say we shouldn't have approved it because it's in the ACEC. I don't know. And like I said, I tend to be fairly flexible about these things. I think you can build something there that's going to be effect neutral to the site, but the simple access in and out and the presence of the ACEC is problematic. I think some more research into that, make sure you've really got a sound foundation there so that the whole thing doesn't just get reversed on us.
Maybe we should build a bridge.
You know, I've heard dumber suggestions. But I don't know how you do that.
I appreciate your candor. I thank you, Chuck.
No,
Janet?
you could put a bridge right into the garage. You know, what are people going to say other than make sure that you got planks wide enough so that the rain can get through, right? Depends on how much money they want to spend. I'll tell you this, if the whole thing gets canceled, I'd go back on the town and ask for the tax money back, saying that it never should have been buildable to begin with.
Well, I think the outcome will be a little bit more different than going to the town and asking for tax money back. The outcome remains to be seen, but I'd like to hear from Janet before I make any more comments.
Right.
Right.
I'm done. Thank you.
Janet?
Well, I share many of the concerns that have been mentioned already, especially with the ACEC. And when the property was purchased in 1990, we didn't have some of the issues that we have 35 years later. And we were not as aware of them or how to deal with them related to climate change and increase in sea level, etc. And you just mentioned maybe building a bridge. Well, there are bridges out to islands in Wellfleet. I am concerned about constructing a road because no matter how permeable a road would be, you have to go through the ACEC and it's not going to be completely permeable and porous. And when there's a significant storm, I can just see water backing up from that area over Dyer Prince Road. So creating more of a flooding problem than might already exist. And I do concur with Karen that we have asked for different explanations and approaches. And I understand not wanting to put time and money into this, but perhaps if there were more detailed explanations, we could work something out. That's it.
Thank you. So to answer your questions, I can address climate resiliency. I can address ACEC regulations a little bit more, and I'm going to request one more continuance to do so because I think if I need to button up the record a little bit for when this may go to appeal, and it's a tough site. I'm at the end of my career. I'm retired now. I'm gonna talk to my clients. I want one more continuance, Karen, and I'm gonna do my best to button up whatever I've submitted to the commission at this point, and then I would hope for a final, not a lot of discussion, but a final vote at the next hearing.
I am not in favor of the continuance because I think we've asked for this information, some of this multiple times, and that the requirements for filing for a waiver are very clear, and you're just going back over the same stuff that we've already asked for, and that you would have known to file given the regulations during any one of the past 3 hearings. But let's hear from everybody else. Let's start with Joanne.
Oh yeah, throw me under the bus. No, I have personally, I have no problem with the continuance. I like to give the applicants as much opportunity as possible. I would love to see your schematics for the proposed bridge that you suggested.
No, Joanne, that was a joke.
Joking. But it wasn't interesting. It wasn't interesting. It was a novel concept. And if you're going to find a way to get the driveway to work, you're going to need some sort of novel concept in my opinion. This is fine for me. But I do, for me, it boils down to whether or not it does not adversely impact the resource area. And if you can demonstrate that, I think we'd be in a good place. And so I want to give you that opportunity. But, I'd like to hear what the other commissioners have to say.
Greg?
Yes, I'm open to giving the applicant the opportunity to try one more time and clean up the issues that are at question here. So I'm open to that.
Janet?
Did you say Janet or Chuck? I'm sorry.
Well, I said Janet, and then I'll say Chuck.
Okay. I would give him one more continuance.
Okay, and Chuck, you as well?
Yep, I agree.
Okay, so if somebody might like to make a motion to continue. Did we lose him?
So moved.
Wait a minute, I don't see David Little on the screen anymore. Do you see David Little on the call? He winked out.
Few lightnings.
I think he might have dropped.
Not.
Let's see if he can reconnect. We're gonna pause for a moment and see if
Okay.
David
I
Little.
think Orleans is getting the brunt of this thunderstorm right now, so perhaps he lost power.
Mm-hmm. We still need to ask him.
I'd take the vote while you can.
Well, we don't know what date he wants continued to. We could, I guess, just continue it to the next meeting in his absence, and then he can adjust that with Alex.
Yep, that sounds good.
Okay, if somebody would like to make a motion to continue this to our June 22nd meeting.
Move to continue to the July 22nd, 2025 meeting.
Thank you, because I said I'm still in June. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, and I guess before we vote, I did not ask for comments from the abutters, and I do see that the sole abutter is indeed on the call. So I want to give you a moment if you want to take it to add anything.
Yeah.
Let's try that again. I think you're muted now. Can you unmute? Oh, okay. We'll give you, if we continue, we'll give you a chance at the next meeting. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. We're gonna vote. Janet?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes.
Chuck? You need to unmute.
Okay, yes.
Okay, thank you. Joanne?
Yes.
And I am a no. Okay, so the motion carries, continue to July 22nd. And Alex, could you let David know? Okay. What was that? I lost my agenda. Okay. All right, so next up is minutes, June 10th, 2025. Any comments from anybody on the minutes? No, if I could have a motion to approve.
So moved.
And a second.
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 Okay, Chuck?
Yep.
Janet?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes.
Joanne?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. And then we have violations, and I'm going to turn that over to Alex.
Sure. Thank you, Karen. A quick update on 150 State Highway. The fence remains in place, so I'm still writing $100 a day citations to the property owner. The property owner has contested the citations, so we do have a date in court set for this upcoming Friday.
Okay, well, good luck with that.
Thank you. And then, did you have something else to say, Kevin?
No, just that it is just a appeal of the citations and not the actual enforcement order.
Correct. So yeah, so it's an appeal to citations, not the enforcement order.
So
Yeah.
even if the I guess it's a magistrate,
The magistrate, yeah.
even if the magistrate throws out the fines, the enforcement order requiring removal of the fence and the stop work order still stands.
That is my understanding. Yeah.
Okay. Just so we've all got clarity on this. Okay.
Yeah. For 65 Harms Way, the office did receive a complaint for unpermitted work at that property. I did do a site visit and issued a stop work order on June 27th. I've since been in contact with the property owners. They've been communicating with both Amy and I, and they are attending the meeting this evening, I believe, to address the commission and to answer any questions the commission may have, about the unpermitted work completed at the property. So with that, I'll turn it over to the property owners.
Yeah. Well, I wonder if, okay, so maybe the property owner can do this, just to detail what work was indeed unpermitted. But if you want to just give us a run through of what you think the situation is.
Yeah, my name is Michael Garrity. I own 65 Harms Way in Eastham. I've owned it for 3 years now, just about, 3.5. And we bought it. It was an investment property, and it came with like kind of like a book of business for renters and things like that. And this past year, we decided to renovate, and we pulled permits to do just the exterior. We did the siding and the windows, and then starting in January, we did the inside of the house just to do new sheetrock and put in a new kitchen and things like that to enhance the property. And we knew renters were going to be coming in end of June. And one of the things that I thought of as we're up there and you're constantly like looking at the place, like, man, like some of this old stuff outside, we'd like to change to new stuff. And so there was an outdoor shower. We wanted to replace it. There was a lot of stepping stones. There were like these old concrete, the kind that like were just like these, I don't know, 8x12 brick type concrete pieces, cinder block looking, where like we want to really upgrade those. And there was a pathway that kind of came from around the house, very narrow, and it had these stepping stones. And in the front of the house, it had these things, but everything was under sand. So a good friend of mine who's on the call right now, Jim Gorman, he's done a lot of work for me landscape wise in Connecticut. I called in a quick favor. We do things for each other a lot. And I just asked if he would go up. I said, we really need to replace some of these things because they're, it's old. And so Jim went up on my behalf and doctored up the place to look better. I didn't pull a permit, number one, because I didn't realize that was the case, and I apologize. And two, we were just kind of replacing other things that were there previously, just with nicer, newer things. So we replaced it all permeable. Jim can explain it better because this is not my field of expertise at all. But it was, hopefully done in a way that was tactful, except for the fact that we didn't pull a permit, and I apologize. So Jim can speak more to like what's actually there.
My name is Jim Gorman. I do have a landscape construction business in Connecticut. Mike and I have been friends for a long time. He had asked that I come up and give him some ideas on what we could do to make the transition from the driveway to the back side of the house more practical and not, not so dangerous. And so when I got there, what we did see was a narrow path through Rosa Rugosa. That path has probably been there for 40 years. It was a 3-foot wide path with a lot of random size concrete blocks, 18 inch by 18 inch, 2 foot by 2 foot, those types, different random blocks with some gravel that were probably put in place years ago to help with structural integrity for the blocks. But over time, the sand had come up over the blocks and you'd be walking up there and trip just to get back. So we uncovered 65 blocks, I believe. Most of them I left on site on the wall on the left-hand side of the house. And what we did, I talked to Mike, I said, listen, what we could do is use some native Cape Cod river rock as, without changing the elevation of the sand, without disturbing the sand, and place larger stepping stones, a little bit wider, leave all the the Rosa Rugosa and the beach plum alone, but, maybe trim them back a little bit, deadheading, which is the proper thing to do, for the health of the plant to begin with. But what we did is we widened the path a little bit by just pruning, not touching the root system, just by pruning a little bit. I know he had a big issue with ticks in that area. So we pruned them back a little bit and we added large stepping stones, with tumbled bluestone that we bought locally right down the road, and didn't disturb the sand, just placed the larger stones, a tumbled bluestone, soft on your feet with some texture around the house, from the driveway around back to the deck. There, again, around the shower, there was a patio out back by the deck. We lifted all that up and we narrowed this actually and made this all permeable and brought it right to the deck steps. And at the same time, there was a couple steps down to the beach that were pressure treated timbers with concrete block that were falling apart. We decided to add some stone steps there as well. So we added a couple steps there. In the driveway, there was a concrete patio made of blocks because the winds were so bad on the east side of the house. We decided to do a little landing area for a grill. So that's what we did in the front of the house. But that's pretty much what we did. We tied in a couple gutter drains to a dry well because Mike was getting water in the house. They had put new gutters on. So we just took the gutter downspouts, ran them into just off the driveway within the property and just put them into a big gravel dry well. But basically we didn't add to the, any of the lot coverage. Everything we did was permeable, using all native products except for the stepping stones, which are Pennsylvania tumbled bluestone. But the gravels, the rock, everything was applied, we bought from locally and they're all native products.
So can I just ask what work you did on that deck there between the house and the beach? Because it looks like in the older photos that there were stairs in the front towards the beach.
Correct. So we did that last year. That was a project in, I want to say, the spring of 24, which we did get approved. We wanted to, it was falling apart. It was old pressure treated wood, ripped the whole thing out, used the same pillars that were already there, reduced its footprint because it had that long path going out towards the beach. And we wanted to take that away to just use the side stairs that were going down on the side of the house. So that's we actually reduced the size of the deck, believe it or not, which is
okay. So that was permitted by the building department, or it wasn't permitted by us?
Oh no, are you there?
Yeah,
I lost you. I lost you for a second.
I think you froze for a second. So that work you said was permitted. That was permitted by the building department?
Last year, yes.
Okay, that was not permitted by us.
No.
And it would have been needed to be permitted by us as well as the
Oh, it is.
other work.
Okay. All right. Sorry, I did not.
So basically, you have the kind of lock that anything you want to do outside, you have to come to us.
Got it. Okay. I'm sorry. I did not. I hate to plead ignorance, but I'm going to plead ignorance because I didn't realize that.
Okay. So Yeah, any questions?
How come the
from
building department wouldn't tell, sorry, now I'm venting, but like, how come
No,
the building
no.
department wouldn't tell me that, like, I should also go to you guys, like,
That's been a bit of a issue.
okay,
So
all right.
I think conservation staff has been working on quite diligently to avoid. But it is a known issue, and yeah. So any questions from the commission on anything at this point? So it seems to me like
I had a question.
Oh, go ahead,
Yep.
Greg.
No, when you're looking at the photo from the bay side, on the left side, on the new configuration, there's a cut that you cut through the bank. Was that there? Was that also part of the original footprint?
There was a little, yes, there was like a couple steps there that like people would walk through, and then sand would blow and it would come back over, sand would blow and it'd come back over. But like we have a ring camera in the back, and the number of people that use it's weird. The number of people that use my property as like a cut through to the beach is unbelievable. So people would just walk across that thing over and over again. Yeah. So Jim added more permanent step to go right through there, but that was constantly used by people. And I don't understand. I can talk to people through. I'm like, why are you on my, like, what do you, like, I mean, people can walk, I get it, but like, it was just a weird situation. I don't understand. But like, so yes, that was now taking those blocks that were there and just said, here's a giant step so that we're not just trouncing through the sandy dune.
Okay, so there's two cuts then. There's one where the stairs are, and there's one
Yep.
on the right.
Yep, there's one on the right. Yep.
And on the outside shower, do you have a sump on that?
No, I do not.
So it's just draining, just without it, just right on the slab or whatever you have there.
Yeah.
And on the garage side, where the door is, there's a patio there now.
Yeah.
Was there a concrete, patio there before?
Yeah, Jip, those are up on the wall now, right? Like,
yes, yeah, there was an area almost the same size, all just concrete blocks, and that's where the grill was set up because there was no wind, and that's where, prior to Mike even purchasing the house, it looked like somebody had been grilling out there for years. Most of the concrete blocks were stained, but yeah, there was a pretty significant just blocks, and we left the concrete ledger that was there, and just added a permeable paver, just to dress it up, and we moved all the concrete blocks and set them up there on the the old brick wall that's been there for a bunch of years. Yes.
You removed some though.
Yeah.
Okay. And did you make any modifications to the septic system? Just curious.
Zero.
Okay.
Anything else, Greg?
Greg froze.
It's probably the storm going through. Greg, anything else?
Yeah.
No?
No. All set.
Okay. Anybody else?
I have additional questions if I can ask them.
You can ask them and then we'll talk about what comes next.
Okay. I mentioned Alex has been very helpful. So thank you to Alex, Amy, overall great conversations. And I appreciate that because I'm open book. So I like having the back and forth. One of the things I mentioned to Alex was, the house was built in 1960 something and we're, on a foundation that really obviously would never be there again. And, that's not something that's desirable to have, but nor is investing, millions of dollars to try to lift it. So I was asking Alex, like what the procedure is that in the future, I see a lot of people do this, and I've gone to the Cape for, since I was a child, and I see a lot of people do it with the large boulders and then populating back with sand to try to, obviously preserve the volume of sand there and then protect the foundation. Is that something I can do? How do I go about that so I don't not do the wrong thing again? And, is that something that this commission would entertain?
Well, your house is technically on a coastal beach. When you look at the DEP resources, I believe. So on a coastal beach, you can't install a rock revetment. That would be something that would go in front of a coastal bank. So, like an escarpment, a cliff. On a coastal beach, you can't do rocks. we might be able to condition a sand drift fence, but I'd have to look up the coastal beach performance standards. But your house is that property has experienced quite a lot of erosion, and your house is sitting on the beach, basically. So that limits what the options would be under the Wetlands Protection Act for permitting.
Okay.
Anything like that.
Well, if there's any, again, from just a helpful human standpoint, if there is things that you guys can advise or for me to do to protect the investment and the beach, that would be appreciated.
You might talk to an engineer about a sand drift fence and see if that would meet performance standards. But I don't really see much for that location. Sorry to say that, but that is kind of the situation there. And then as in terms of the unpermitted work, what we would need to have is an after the fact filing so that we can look at, so you can describe for us what existed before you did any work, like when you bought the property, what the state was, and then all the work, describe all the work that you did. And then we can look at it formally and decide if we are okay with it or we want you to make changes or how it fits under the regulations.
Okay.
And I think Alex, this would be, do you think this would be an RDA?
Yeah, I was just I was going back and forth.
So am I.
Between an RDA and a notice of intent.
It seems like there was a little bit more work. What?
Was there any excavation completed?
I'm sorry, any excavation?
Yeah. Did you remove anything from just looking at the delineations here? Was any ground material removed during the work that you completed?
No, I mean, we basically kept all the elevations the same. We
Okay.
built, we did take away the concrete blocks, 65 blocks or so, just on the pathway alone, replaced them with larger stones, but didn't touch the sand. Like I said, we trimmed back the Rosa Rugosa a little bit on both sides, maybe a foot on both sides, which is, in my opinion, healthy for the plant as a licensed nurseryman. But other than that, we basically kept to the same footprint, not adding to the lot coverage at all. And everything we did was 100% permeable.
Okay.
We did try to include a bunch of photographs. I think they were sent to you, Alexander. I'm hoping that you received them.
Yeah,
and that was during maybe some prior, but during construction. I wish we had taken more if we knew that we would be in this situation. But that's why we saved everything that was on site after the phone call. We wanted to make sure that you at least they were visible and you could see what was there.
Yeah.
But again, there's many photographs that'll show you the concrete blocks, the placement of the old patio, the pressure treated timbers that were there, the deteriorating, falling apart shower that was there. A lot of those photographs we do have and would just show you that we didn't add anything additional to what was there. In terms of square footage or permeable materials or any of that.
And then are we going to lump in the deck work with this as well, Karen?
We need to. It's not been permitted.
Yeah.
So we have to do that. So I think, do you have a site plan for the property or maybe an old septic plan or something that you could use as a basis for the work? I don't think we need to have a new site plan for this amount of work. But if you could describe what was there when you bought the property and the work in detail and what changed and go on under I think a request for determination of applicability, and then we can review it and sort this out. So we're at a state where any work we allow to remain would be legitimate and okay, and we could lift the stop work order and so on.
Okay.
And I think you can talk to Alex about the details of getting that file.
Yeah, I mean, hugely helpful would just be in an email if you guys just give me a link to whatever I have to fill out or however I have to do it, if that's possible. Like, is it on, I assume it's on your site or?
Yes, if you go to our website, it is an online filing and it'll outline, specifically what materials are needed for that filing. I think the big one for this would be having some sort of site plan that the commission can reference when approving or looking through your after the fact permits. So do you know if you have a site plan for your property? We could look on our end too to see if we have something on file, but it's not a guarantee.
I don't think the last time we looked at this property in any way was like 2020 or 2022, when the previous owners were looking to add some fan nourishment in front of the house. But I don't think, I'm pretty sure we didn't have a site plan for that. But there might be an old septic plan. This house has been there for a while.
Yeah.
1961.
Yeah, and there hasn't been, since I've been on the commission, any other filings speak of. Except I think there was a water service connection. You're on town water, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so there was that. I think that was in 2020. But Alex can see if he can help you, or Amy can help you find maybe an old site plan on record.
Yeah, I'm just looking through our database real quick.
And this would be an after the fact filing, so you have to check that box when you're going through the online filing requirements.
Okay.
It looks like we do have, I'm not going to look through all of this tonight, but it does appear like we do have a number of filings from this property on our database. So we may have a site plan on file, and we could look for that and send it to you.
That'd be super helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. So I think we've got that in progress, and hopefully it's not too painful. Talk to us.
God bless you guys. 2.5 hours on a meeting. That's a long time. So.
Yeah, this is not one of our longer ones either.
Oh, wow. All right. Well, hey, I'll let you guys go then. Enjoy the rest of it.
Okay, thanks so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having us. Appreciate it. Take care.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Okay, liaison reports. Anything from CPC committee, Janet? And strategic planning is going to meet on August 13th to review community feedback on the plan and also to discuss a plan on how to manage the plan and select liaisons from the Strategic Planning Commission to various boards and committees in town so that those boards and committees can keep the Strategic Planning Committee up to date with what's going on there. And obviously I will be the liaison to you guys. And Open Space Committee is meeting meeting in, I think, next week. No, it's meeting the week after next. And we're doing the same stuff I always talk about. So there you go. Okay, education and training updates. Anybody have anything? No? Okay, so other discussion. So we have two things. We have the annual committee reorganization. So we get to choose once again who's going to be chair, vice chair, and clerk. And I would like to keep being chair, so I will nominate myself. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, and we will do roll call. Janet?
Yes.
Chuck?
No.
No? Okay. Greg?
Yes.
Joanne?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. So I'm reappointed as chair. And then there's the question of vice chair. I know Janet said she'd be happy to do it unless somebody else would like to have a turn. No, I see head shaking. Okay, so I'll be happy to nominate Janet as vice chair. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Chuck?
Yes.
Joanne?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes.
Janet?
Yes.
I'm a yes, and then clerk. So Chuck has been our clerk. Do you want to keep holding that position?
No, thank you. I've got too
No?
many other things going on.
Okay, this clerk is such an onerous job. Would somebody else like to take that on? That would be either Greg or Joanne. And the
Basically
clerk,
just reading the minutes.
everybody, well, Amy is basically functioning as our clerk because she does the minutes and we all read and work on them. So there isn't really much to do as clerk, but we are required to have one.
Yeah.
So
I nominate Greg.
Well,
Okay,
who's doing forestry?
Are you gonna
I'll do forestry, you do clerk.
All right.
Okay, so I second the nomination. Chuck. We're voting on clerk. Chuck?
Oh, yes, fine.
Yeah. Janet?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes.
Joanne?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. And then the forest committee. So you're gonna do it, Joanne?
Yes.
You can back out later and we'll find somebody else, but
It's not up to me, but yes, as long as I remain in Eastham, I will do forestry.
okay. Any
That
news on
sounds
that?
ominous.
I will ask obliquely, any news on that front?
Yeah, there is a Supreme Court decision out today, which makes it look like I might be in Eastham. So why I'm more confident in saying yes to the forestry.
Okay, that's good news. Okay, so
for you, it's good news. Yeah, but we'll see. We'll see. We can. We should have an offsite. We should all have an offsite again and catch up on other news.
Well, that is next on our agenda after this. So we have a nomination. I think Greg nominated you for Forest Committee. We'll take it as that. And is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so Janet?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes.
Chuck?
Yes.
Joanne?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Congratulations. So I will let the town clerk know and I'll let the chair of the Forest Committee know. And their next meeting is August 28th, I think at 3 o'clock. But they will I'll pass along your information and they'll let you know.
Thank you.
And thank you for taking us up on that. And I have a gift for you next time I see you.
Like a real gift or like a big binder with stuff in it?
Like a real gift, a book of wetland trees that the DEP
cool. Okay.
is giving out, and I picked up an extra, but it seems fitting to give it to our forest committee representative. So
that's
good. Okay, so we're done with that, and we were going to what we talked about at the last meeting was having a get together for Mike, doing a happy hour out somewhere. So if you're all interested in that, I can send out an email and we can try to coordinate time. That seems
works for me.
Okay. Okay. And anything else? Oh, yes. So on July 21st, I am on the select board agenda to talk about our commission vacancies and about recruiting for regulatory boards in general, because it hasn't been going well at all, and looking for their help. Is there anything that you guys want me to highlight when I'm talking to them about any of these issues? Because I'm basically going to suggest to them that we need to treat it more like we were recruiting for a professional job rather than just a random town committee, that we have to be more active and strategic in how the town itself applies people to help with this kind of recruitment, and not just leave it for people to show up and at the town website and say, oh, that sounds interesting, or leave it for me and everybody else to kind of try and scramble around and find people. Because we're down to 5, and that gets us into possible forum issues, and that's worrying. Okay, and that's basically it. Nobody has anything else. Thank you guys for all your work tonight, and if we could have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
In a second?
Second.
Okay, Chuck?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes.
Janet?
Yes.
Joanne?
Yes.
And I am a yes.